Hey everyone, Matt here, and I am really excited today because I was able to grab my friend Leo Babauta, and you probably know Leo as the author of the blog Zen Habits, and somebody that I've learned a tremendous amount from personally, just in changing my own habits with fitness, diet, all kinds of things. So I'm excited for that reason. Leo, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. So, what just to bring people up to speed, anyone who happens to not know who you are by now, which would be strange because I've linked to your site plenty of times for mine. I wrote a post in the summer that was called "How I've Begun Changing My Life One Habit at a Time," and it was all about
Yeah,
these 8 or 10 habits that I had changed as a result, really, of one of your courses and the things I had learned from you after having failed to do so many times in the past when I was kind of just randomly trying to change, not knowing that there really was a skill to changing habits. So, I guess the cool thing would be is if you can kind of just give us a little background about your own story because you have some pretty inspiring changes of your own.
sure. Yeah, well, your story is super inspiring. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I do write about habits and changing your life and stuff like that, but not everyone's able to put it all into action. So I was definitely inspired to read your changes, and so great job.
cool, thank you.
But yeah, so I'm Leo Babauta, the like you said, the author of Zen Habits, and I started my blog in 2007 when I had gone through about a year of changing my habits and my entire life, and it was an amazing, at least to me, an amazing transformation at that point. Again, that was 2007. Actually, it started in late 2005. The reason why, to me, it was amazing is because I felt like I couldn't change things. I was stuck. I was overweight and unhealthy, as you know, a smoker, sedentary, and addicted to junk food, and deeply in debt, and all kinds of problems that I was having in 2005. And when I was finally able to start changing my habits, I started with quitting smoking, which I had failed at 7 times before, and I finally, got it to stick by using some methods that I had learned from research, from the American Cancer Society, and a bunch of other organizations that had brought together all these scientific studies and put together some really useful methods that I don't think a lot of people put into practice. I kind of took all of them and I tested them all out. And then I learned stuff from other people who were doing it online. Obviously other people have learned to quit smoking. So I asked them all how they did it and compiled like all these ideas and started testing them out. And it worked. And then I started applying them to starting running as a replacement for the stress that I had been, using smoking for. And so that worked also. And I realized quitting smoking and running, one was ending a bad habit, one was starting a new habit, but really the same techniques work. And so I started doing it for other habits. And to me, it was just a revelation to see, just how that can work, and that I wasn't this undisciplined, slob who
Right.
couldn't do anything. And so all of these years of feeling bad about myself, not being able to change, and I think this is something that I've seen so many people. It's just feeling bad about yourself that you can't stick to something or can't change or you don't have the discipline. Um, just being able to make those changes, it really changed everything about me. How good I felt about myself, the trust I had in myself. Really, it was amazing. And so I started writing about that in Zen Habits, and that's what I try and help people do today.
Cool, very cool. And you've since gone far beyond just getting in shape. I mean, and just getting healthy. I mean, you're vegan, correct? Or mostly vegan?
I am now 100% vegan, so
Okay, awesome. Very
yeah.
cool. And then you ran a marathon, I think.
I ran a marathon right before starting Zen Habits. So
Oh,
about
okay.
a year after starting running, I ran my first marathon, and that was a public thing where I had written a column in the local newspaper on Guam, where I was living at the time.
Right.
Um, I wrote every 2 weeks to let people know that I'm going to run this marathon, and here's my training, and it was cool because the entire island of Guam. I mean, people who read the newspaper or the sports section of the newspaper were like following along with this story of mine, and they run into me. Strangers would run into me at the store and say, "You're the marathon guy. Good job." and then there were people cheering me on during the actual marathon. So just that public accountability really gave me the motivation that I never had before to run that first marathon. And since then, I've run two different ones, but that column in the newspaper taught me about the power of public accountability and the motivation that it gives you. And so I said, what am I going to do now that I don't have this newspaper column? So I started Zen Habits as a way to get that
Okay.
accountability still going.
I'm,
And
I'm
I recommend it to anybody. I mean, you can start a blog for free. You can go on Facebook. You can start a Twitter account. Go onto an online forum and use that positive public pressure as a way to stay accountable and motivate yourself.
I'm glad you brought this up because I had totally been intending to ask you this, like just by email or something else. I wrote a post the other day about making your goals and your just your intentions of changing habits, making that public and telling someone about it, putting it on Facebook, starting a blog, whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, the majority of people agreed and said, "Yeah, that's a great idea," and I can see how that would work. But two or three people linked me to some talk that I think Derek Sivers had given. Have you heard this? I wanted to hear your just your take on that. That basically what they were saying was he had cited some sort of research or something that showed that people, when they actually announce their habits, that they would then become just satisfied enough with kind of their new identity that would give them enough that they didn't then have the motivation to keep doing it, which had not been my experience at all, and I imagine not, or it sounds like not yours at all. But
Yeah, no.
what do you think?
What Derek is saying is, that just announcing it feels like an accomplishment. It almost feels like in your mind you've already done it, just because you've told the world that you're doing it.
Right.
You've done it if you haven't done it yet, or if you've only done a few days of it. So just announcing it, if in your mind that's linked with the actual doing of it, then you're going to stop. And there's truth to that. So what you have to do is when you announce it, not just say, "Hey, I'm now a vegan," or "Hey, I'm now a marathon runner," or whatever it is that you're trying to change. You can't just say that. You have to say, "I'm setting a challenge for myself for the next 30 days, and I expect you guys to hold me accountable, and I'm going to report here every day. And if I don't report here, you have to give me some kind of, ask me about it or give me some kind of penalty. I have to donate to some cause that I hate or something like that. Make it fun, but at the same time, make sure that there's accountability built into that announcement. Not just I've done it or I started it or I'm doing it, but I'm doing it and you need to hold me accountable every day. Otherwise, you're going to just stop after the announcement. Maybe not right away, but after a while, you feel like you don't really need to keep doing it if you've done the announcement. So that's the announcement has to be something that's going to be perpetuated, and you have to feel some kind of motivation to keep doing it. One thing about announcements, while we're getting into this topic, is some people will make an announcement and say, "I'm going to stick to it," and then they stop, and then they are too embarrassed to go on and say that they didn't do it.
Uh-huh.
Some shame to not doing it, and so that actually stops them from going on and admitting it,
Right.
and getting restarted. Because really, we all falter at one point or another. We all stop a habit that we started, even if we've been doing it for a few months. There's going to be some disruption, and we'll stop. The key really is learning how to restart without any kind of just leave all the shame behind and just get started again. And if you let the shame stop you, the shame of not doing it, and shame of everyone else knowing that you've stopped, if you let that stop you, then you're going to have a real hard time continuing with a lot of habits.
That's cool, and that's something I had experienced a lot on my own. It really does. Like the more you fail and the more you feel that shame, it can accumulate, and you can actually. I became pretty much powerless. I mean, at doing it, like worse than I was the first few times I tried, just after having failed and kind of reinforcing this idea that, well, I really can't. People can't change that kind of habit that's ingrained that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. I'd not thought about that as far as the idea of that this shame can actually keep you from coming back and reporting back to your accountability tool, people, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And if that's true, let's say you're too embarrassed now to go back to whatever this announcement you made, Facebook or a blog or whatever. What you have to do is figure out, okay, say, well, that's not working. Let's give myself permission to just leave that behind, and let's restart it in some other way. And so you have to kind of just learn how to just push things behind you, all of the the guilty feelings of the past, and say, let's figure out a new way that's going to re-excite me, reinvigorate this habit change, and will work. If that didn't work, there's got to be something else that works. So don't let a failure stop you. I mean, that's true of anything in life. If you let any failure stop you in any work or being a dad, that you can't let that stop you. Otherwise, you're never going to do anything.
Right.
You have to say, okay, I messed up there, messed up with my kid, I messed up with my habit change, I messed up with my work. What am I going to do to fix that? How am I going to overcome? Because this problem that messed me up is going to happen again. So what have I learned? That's pretty obvious stuff, I guess. But I think when it comes to habits, people forget that and they let it stop them, and they internalize it as something that's wrong with them, rather than it's wrong with the environment that they've set up for themselves. And that's really what the thing is. It's not so much us and our discipline and whether we're good people or not, or good at sticking to things. It's whether we've set up the environment in an intelligent way that's engineered to get us to actually stick to the habit change. And if we think we have and that it doesn't work, then we just have to kind of adjust the environment and just keep adjusting it until it works.
Okay, so the idea of leaving the shame and the guilt behind, losing that, I mean that's definitely something I've seen in plenty of the articles you've written, and in the course where I learned all this stuff from you. Can you talk about two or three of the other really big ones, to someone who's never really thought about the process behind changing habits? What are the really major principles, two or three that you'd stress to someone who's just hearing this much and then going off and changing?
I'll list them, and then if you want me to go deeper into any of them, because all of them have a lot of really strong reasoning behind them. One is one habit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Start as small as possible is another one. There's another thing that's built around triggers. So trigger is something that triggers a habit. For example, smoking. So you have to know what your triggers are for smoking. Stress could be a trigger. Doing something good could be a trigger. Sex could be a trigger. Food could be a trigger. There's lots of possible triggers. So for a new habit, you want to have a trigger that you're going to link the habit to. So have a trigger, do it right after repeatedly for a number of weeks until it becomes more and more automatic. Have positive reinforcement built into the habit change for doing the habit, and negative reinforcement for not doing the habit, which is the reverse of what a lot of people have for starting new habits. For example, exercise, which is negative reinforcement for doing it, which is this is too hard or painful or whatever. Right. And positive reinforcement for not doing it, which is I get to lay on the couch, watch TV, and eat Doritos. Sure. It's less pleasurable. So it's positive reinforcement for not doing it. So you want to re-engineer it so that that's reversed, so that you're steered towards doing it. Public accountability is another one. And built into public accountability, part of that is also just socializing it, so you can do it with friends, go running with a partner. I use exercise as a common one just because that's a common example that a lot of people sure. It could really be anything. You could socialize, work habits. You can socialize parenting habits, vegan habits. Yeah, right. So whatever it is that you're trying to change, you can do it with a partner or a group of people, group of friends, or do it online. I think that's mostly it. One of the things with the positive reinforcement, to go back to that, of doing the habit, and I hope I'm not rambling on too much.
No, go ahead. You ramble.
Yeah. So reward is something that people think of a lot, is the positive reinforcement. I do it, I get a reward, kind of like the rat, getting a reward for finishing the maze or something. And so the thing about that is sometimes rewards are so far away. 3 months I'm going to have a nice abs or something like that. That's too far away. The positive reinforcement has to come immediately. Another thing about rewards is sometimes you don't give it to yourself. For example, if I say I'm going to get a massage after going for a long run, and then things come up and you don't do the massage, then the reward is just kind of, sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. So it can't be that inconsistent. It has to be a consistent positive reinforcement. So what I've learned, the best reward is enjoying the activity itself. So going back to running, a lot of people look at running as a really hard or difficult thing they don't like to do. It can also be, as you and I know, an enjoyable thing. You can go out and enjoy nature,
Hmm.
have fresh air, a break from your work, getting out of, away from stress and de-stressing. It could be a form of meditation. It could be a way of enjoying just moving and exerting yourself and sweating. You could just like moving fast. You could, go explore a new trail or a new area, or you can do it with someone else and have a nice conversation. So all of those things are ways to enjoy running, and if you can enjoy the activity, whatever the habit is, then you get the positive reinforcement right away as you're doing it, and that's really important for sticking to the habit.
Okay, so what do you think about when people like build in the seemingly counterproductive reward, like the chocolate after their run, or I'm gonna get a six pack of my favorite beer on Friday if I do all this. I've read
Yeah,
in that book, The Power of Habit, where the author, Charles Duhigg, I think,
yeah,
basically said that's not a bad thing if as long as you can drop that reward part eventually, if it helps you to reinforce that habit. Do you
yeah.
you agree with that, or do you think it should be just about the activity itself?
So yeah, I have no problems with a reward right afterward. I think it's not as good, only because again, there's inconsistencies in whether you do it or not a lot of times, and then also, um, it comes a little bit further away, which is after.
Right.
And so dislike if you dislike doing it, and then the reward, the good part comes after, then you're gonna not look forward to doing it. You're gonna look forward to the thing after, and so you might try and avoid the doing it and maybe skip to the beer. I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
The beer is the thing I like. So, um, so that's one problem with having rewards as opposed to the thing itself being the reward. Another thing, like you said, is it can be counterproductive. And so if the beer or the chocolate comes right after, you're to me short term, body changes are really useless. Um, you know, so you're not going to get that much change from running for 2 weeks.
Right.
You might add a little bit for drinking too much beer in 2 weeks, but it's really that's not as important as getting the habit of running going or the habit of any kind of exercise. So that to me, that's not really the problem. The problem is that the beer then also can become a habit. If you repeat a trigger habit combination after a few weeks or a month of repetitions, it starts to become automatic. And then every time you do a run, as an example, if you've been doing a beer afterward, you're going to get an urge to drink the beer,
Right.
and then you're going to have to kind of quit that habit. Which, like why start a habit you don't want to have to quit later?
Right. Which isn't to say we're anti-beer, just anti-beer after every single one.
You love beer.
Right.
I'm just like, to me, beer is something that you kind of want not as a habit, but more as a thing that you choose to do, for different reasons, just to
Gotcha.
socialize with a friend or whatever. But if it's something that's like every time you run, you have to have the beer,
Yeah. Right.
it becomes, maybe something that can be a problem. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure if you can run enough, the beer is not a problem at all. It's a nice,
Right.
you know,
All right. So
drink.
so we've talked a lot about the exercise. Use the exercise as the example a lot because it's an easy one. What about people who want to go become more vegetarian or more vegan or totally vegetarian, totally vegan? It's always the question that people always ask is it do you do it like cold turkey, just quit everything at once, or do you do it gradually?
Yeah.
And for me, it was a very very gradual process. I mean, I spent a whole year where I didn't eat red meat and just ate. I stopped eating the four-legged animals for that year, and then cut out the two-legged animals, then finally the fish.
You
But some
skip
people have success the other way. What about you?
you skip the three-legged animals then.
I did skip those. Yeah, I didn't eat those dogs without one leg that you see walking around.
Anyway, sorry, I can resist. So no, actually, start small was the second thing that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and I really think for most habits, I mean, it really depends on the person. Some people can go cold turkey and just change all at once. What I've found is that is a kind of like hit and miss approach. It can work if you are strong enough and dedicated enough and have enough engineered, so the environment so that you will stick to it. Again, accountability, positive, negative reinforcement, all of that stuff. Um, but yeah, just it's really tough to make a big change and stick to it. So one of the problems with not starting small, going the opposite, which is starting big, is that it becomes this big thing that you have to commit to each day. And so changing your entire diet all at once means you have to plan breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, going out to dinner with your wife, socializing with friends, going to holidays with families. All of that stuff is all new, and so you have to do this big, huge commitment, which takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of focus, and also you might just start to dread it, like this is too hard, and then you'll quit after a while. And so what you really want is to stick to something and not quit. If you can form the habit of that, then that's much better than getting the short-term results. So if you want to really stick to a new, diet, a lifestyle change for a long time, then it has to be something that you're gonna, be good at sticking to. And so small changes are by far easier to stick to and more likely to succeed. So I figure give yourself the most likely, by going small, you're giving yourself a higher chance of succeeding. That's really what you want, is a higher chance of succeeding, rather than like, I want to be vegetarian or vegan today,
Right, right.
So that's my advice.
Yeah, and it's so tough. I mean, especially maybe not for everybody, but as I wrote in that post, like my tendency when I used to want to change, when I would become inspired to change, it would start with something like I'd say, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym 3 times a week now, and then with that, I'm going to start eating healthier, and I'm not going to drink alcohol, and I'm going to cut out coffee too, and I would just make this huge list of all these things that I all of a sudden had to change now, and felt every time you kind of get the feeling that this time is different, and I can really do it because in that moment you're so inspired. So it's such a counterintuitive thing to reduce it to one, and not just one, but start really really small with one too.
Well, that's the reason why I say start with one. That's the first one that I mentioned, and they're both related, obviously. But the thing you're talking about is really being over optimistic about ourselves and our ability to make lifestyle changes and make them stick, and then and so it's overestimating ourselves and underestimating the difficulty and enormity of the task. So even a small change where you're running for 5 minutes or working out for 5 minutes or just doing one small meal change a day, that might seem too small and unambitious and all of that stuff, and like, oh, I don't have time to stick around for these long, wait around for these long changes to take place. But the truth is, even that tiny change is difficult to stick to. And so, like, if that is hard to stick to, imagine something that's like huge. Like, how hard is that? And why give yourself something so difficult to do, and increase your likelihood of failing and then feeling bad about yourself and then not even trying next time? So yes, we're very optimistic and we get very excited, and I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens, again, going back to the starting small and the one thing at a time, is when you narrow down, you kind of hold yourself back. Like, you have all this enthusiasm that you want to pour into it. If you have this huge container, all these different habit changes that are going to be really big all overnight, you pour all that energy into it, it'll fill it up, but it's going to be very shallow, and then it's going to be gone. You have no more enthusiasm. Then you have to kind of like figure out something else to be enthusiastic about. So your energy and enthusiasm will die down very quickly when you spread it out like that. But if you can contain it and channel it, then what happens is you really push forward this one small change much further into the calendar, not just 3 days, but a week, 2 weeks, past what I call the hump, which is really a difficult part, 2 or 3 weeks into it, where people often give up. And so if you can get past that hump, and then it's a lot more smooth sailing. And so you want to channel and contain that enthusiasm, which is a good thing. And so you kind of just say, I want to do all this, but I'm going to make sure I only do this one little thing, one time a day. And really, if you can put all your energy into that and just be thinking about that all day, even though you only had to do it one time for 5 minutes, you're like, oh, I did it. I feel great about that. I'm going to tell everybody about it. I'm going to plan tomorrow to make sure that I get it, even though I have someone coming over in the morning. I'm going to plan around that, make sure I get that in. So thinking about it all day is good, but you only have one 5-minute thing to think about. So
yeah, I like that advice a lot. I mean, I think that was brand new to me when I first heard it from you. The idea of even not even just like deciding today that you're going to start some program, but actually giving yourself a few days in advance and like picking a start date and letting that enthusiasm and energy build up as you're anticipating this start date. And then
Yeah,
once you have started, actually not letting yourself go beyond what you scheduled yourself to do that day.
yeah.
Like if you were only going to meditate for 5 minutes, don't do it for a half hour the first day because you're excited about it. Because you can save that energy and use it when you'll need it later to keep that 5 minutes up, and then gradually increase from there.
It kind of it's like building this anticipation. Like if you set the start date in the future, and that's what I learned from smoking is don't just quit today because then it seems like a tiny little thing that you can do any day.
Right.
Have this date in the calendar, like you know, but for those who are listening who don't know this, you can say I'm going to quit December 1st. If today's November, let's say 12th, I can quit a few weeks from now, or 2 weeks from now, or even just a week from now. Set a date, mark it on the calendar, make this big thing. But what all happens is that you have this anticipation, like I can't wait, and it builds up. And even when you get to it, and you can only do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is, and you say, "Oh, I want to do more," but you hold it in, and you're like, "Oh, I can't wait till tomorrow. I
Right.
can't wait." Anticipation actually increases your enthusiasm, which it sounds counterintuitive, but actually it's a really useful method.
Yeah, good. This is fascinating stuff. I love talking about all this stuff. But I don't want to keep you forever. So I do want to talk about your new program, to which I was a contributor, Simple Fitness Habit. And what I think is great about it is that it's, anything that organizes all this information and just kind of gives you the motivation to actually do something with it and a reason to begin. I heard you speak 2 summers ago out in Portland for World Domination Summit, and I was so moved by like the advice you gave. This start really small, one habit at a time. But even then, when I came home and was going to do it, it just kind of melted away, and I said, "Nah, I can do more than that today. I can do 3 habits at a time." And somehow having that structure and a program in place that is telling you what to do, for me, that is really what made the difference when I finally did that. And for me, paying money for something, I don't like the argument that yes, you should pay money because then you're committed to a program. But for me, with your Sea Change program, that really was part of it. Just knowing that I was paying this little amount per month, that it made me want to use it and actually do it.
Yeah,
But anyway, can you tell everyone about Simple Fitness Habit and just kind of overview what it is and who contributed and everything?
yeah. But first, I want to address something that you said before I forget, which is paying for something.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely don't think you need to pay for things in order
Right.
to, I mean, to create a habit, you don't. I've written about it for free on Zen Habits. Other people have. I got the information from, various different sites. So yeah, I want people to not think that they need to buy any product, including mine or yours,
Mm-hmm.
to accomplish anything. So that's the first thing. I'll be completely honest about that. I write this stuff because I figure, well, first of all, I do need to make a living.
Yeah.
I wish I could give everything away for free. But second of all, it's not just that. I want to make a living helping people. And I feel that the things that I'm creating and we're creating together are actually going to help people. And so paying for something, I think, uh, does in your mind make it something that you've committed to. Even just laying down those, 40 some bucks, on the counter and saying, I want this, that's a commitment. You're saying, $47 is not, it didn't just come out of the air. I put my life into, earning that money. It took me a certain number of hours to make it, and my fitness habits are worth that much to me. So that's one thing. But so simple fitness habits, basically, what it is, it's not just fitness advice, but it's a proven method that I've learned through my own experimentations and habit changes, helping people in the Sea Change program and other courses that I've done to change their habits. And so I think what people do is they'll buy a fitness DVD and use it for a little bit and then put it down and waste their money. And so what I want to do is find a way to use the habit change techniques that I've learned and marry it with fitness stuff from great people like yourself and a few other fitness experts that we've gathered together. And so you get this great fitness advice, but with habit change, like that's a missing component from a lot of fitness
Right.
programs. And so, and not only that, but what you're actually paying for is not just the advice, but we have a forum where we're doing some accountability, like you've seen in the Sea Change program. It's really the same kind of thing where if you want to use that part of the program, you can get a lot of accountability kind of built in and stick to the habit longer. We also have webinars and Q&A kinds of things, so you can actually ask experts where you can't really do that with a TurboFire DVD or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Good programs, but you can't talk to the DVD. So this is what you're really paying for is interactivity and being able to ask questions. But I'm really excited about it. We've already had a bunch of people sign up for it, and we have some really cool experts. Matt here has contributed for people who want to train for a half marathon. What he doesn't know is I'm going to try and pull him in and get him to have some other great running advice.
Sure.
Maybe some vegetarian advice too. We'll see how much I can get from him. But no, it's really cool because it's really aimed at a bunch of different types of people who have different goals. So if you're just starting out and you've never done like fitness, exercise or eating healthy before, then we have stuff for you for beginners, and then we have people for trying to lose fat and gain muscle and run a half marathon, and also one from a cool writer, Mark Sisson from Mark's Daily Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark is, I don't know how old he is, but it doesn't really matter because you look at his picture and he could be or 30 or something like that.
Right.
And but he's in amazing shape as despite getting older. And he's not old or anything, but definitely you couldn't tell that he's getting older. Just he has better abs than I do, and so he's helping people stay mobile and strong through the years. And I think that's a really important goal that I'm trying to learn to do as well. So I'm really happy about all of that. And to me, we also have something from the Sea Change program that I've imported over here, which is the mindful diet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I haven't really talked much about on Zen Habits, but what it is it's a way to look at diet changes that's, I think, very different than the traditional way, which is, okay, here are the changes you need to make and how much you need to. This is more approaching the reasons why people eat and why we have these habits, these bad eating habits, whether it's drinking soda all day or eating sweets, snacking on chips all day. Those kinds of things are binge eating when there's a buffet in front of you. So all of those things are emotional issues to deal with, emotional triggers. Again, these are habit related things, but people aren't necessarily aware of all of the emotional ties that they have to food. And it goes back to our childhood when certain people might have given us food as a way to express their love, and so food for us is now equated with love.
Sure.
And we're lonely and depressed, we want love, we go to food for it. That's just one example, but I think it's a really important topic, and it's just one component of this, but I think it's a really important one.
Excellent. So check it out. It's simplefitnesshabit.com, right?
Yeah,
I'll put the link. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a great program. I love, like you said, that there's the habit component to the fitness and diet change, because that's missing in so much, not just fitness advice, but like if you read any sort of personal development books and all these things, all of them talk about the importance of habits, but there's almost no one really ever tells you how. And like, just start with one, start small, have a trigger, all that stuff. Simple Fitness Habit has that, and so does pretty much anything that you put out about habits. So I think that's why it's great, and that's why it's been effective for me, and I'm sure so many other people.
It's the interesting thing is the more that I do this, I've done it with Sea Change. There's another course that I've done called the Habit Course, and then this one is geared towards fitness. But each one of them have this habit component in it. And what's interesting is the more I do it and the more I work with people on it, the more that I've learned. I'm only one use case. There's actually a bunch of other people who have different problems that they're facing, and so the techniques is getting better and better. And what I'm hoping is that as people enter this, that they will not only use it and get benefit from it, but will tell us where they're having problems that maybe we haven't addressed, and then we'll keep improving it to help basically all the main areas where people might have problems forming a fitness habit. And so this will get better and better based on people's feedback. So that's something that we're doing with this is really listening and trying to feel for where the pain points are that aren't addressed. And so you're here to ask questions. We're going to have webinars every month, and there's a forum, and there's a feedback form, and we're going to do different surveys. And I'm developing some ways to track habits that are kind of like a habit app. Kind of, all of this stuff is kind of taking different angles at getting information from people on how they're using the information and the program and what's working and what's not. And then we'll just keep making it better from there. So you'll get a lot of ability to interact with the program.
Very cool. Yeah, very powerful stuff, inspiring. I love talking about it. It's exciting for me just to think about, starting something new based on just this advice. So, Leo, I appreciate your time today, and I'm sure people got a lot out of this. I know I did.
Cool.
And I look forward to working together on something else soon, and hopefully having you back again sometime on No Meat Athlete.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I want to say Matt's is one of my favorite blogs. So, yeah, I mean, it combines two of my loves, vegetarianism and running, and a really cool person too. I've met Matt in person a couple times now, and I think he's a great guy and sincere, honest, trustworthy, and I definitely subscribe to the blog and look forward to your posts.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Leo.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, see you later.